Hey everybody, welcome back to the Point. We're all doing well on this Thursday evening. We have lots to talk about today, so much to get into from over the week. So we'll be locked and loaded today. We'll get into a number of different topics, starting with some NHL thoughts. I can't wait for this regular season to end. That's my general thought right now is I can't wait for the regular season to be over, to move on from this stage. But there's some other things, chasing history, some wild card debacle in the Eastern Conference. We'll get into that in a little bit. Also want to touch on March Madness today. Final Four this weekend, men and women's tournament, both interesting. Talk about the betting line in both of those games. So that is forthcoming here on the program. Major League Baseball, the Blue Jays don't look good. The Marlins look worse. The Oakland Athletics are heading to Sacramento for the time being. So we'll touch on that in a little bit. Also get to some UFC if we have time later on in the program. So, as I said, been off since Sunday, but a little bit under the weather, but I'm back. Happy to be with you all. I love hockey, but the regular season's 82 games. It's a long season, and I want it to end. Pretty just point blank. It's to a point where there's still races, but I don't really care. Do they end up catching? Does it really matter? Does home ice matter that much anymore? I think you make a strong argument no, looking at last year with Florida getting to a Stanley Cup final and being on the road in every one of those series. So, there's still arguments, there's still interest at the surface here. But for me, what I'm watching for over the next little bit is what happens with the wild card race. Full of bad teams. Just to be open and honest. If you're not aware, there's a race ongoing where you have in the final wild card spot the Washington Capitals, who've lost 3 in a row, haven't been playing well, but they have 82 points. And they played 74 games. Then you have Detroit, 75 games played, 82 points, behind Washington because Washington has played one less game. 75 games played, you have the New York Islanders, who are currently sitting at 81 points, so a point out of the playoffs. They also trail Philadelphia, who are third in the Metro, by 2 points. And then you have Pittsburgh. Somehow still in it because Sidney Crosby's got 19 points in his last 6 games. They are only 3 points out of a playoff spot, and they play the Washington Capitals tonight in their most important game of the season. Buffalo, I think, is out of it at 77 points with only 6 games to play. So, knowing all of that, I don't think any of these teams are dangerous. I don't think any of these teams are that good. But somebody's making the play. Well, 2 of them technically, because there's going to be another team in the Metro with Philly still hanging on. We'll talk about Torts here in a minute. The best story out of the bunch would be Pittsburgh. Because Sidney Crosby plays on the Penguins. They trade Gensel, moving off pieces. The rebuild is starting. Rumors galore from people, including me, that Sidney Crosby should be leaving this team after the year, which I stand on, by the way. I believe that opinion is just, correct. But what happens? What happens from here? If Crosby gets in, it's fascinating. If the Islanders get in, Quite frankly, I give the Islanders the best chance out of all these teams to actually do something in the playoffs. More than Washington, more than Detroit, more than Pittsburgh, more than Philly. I believe the Islanders have the best goaltender. They have the most depth. Yes, it's been a minute, but this team has won rounds. They went to back-to-back conference finals in 2020 and 2021. They made the playoffs last year, taking Carolina to 6 games. They're just a physical bunch. They're in your face. You have Patrick Waugh behind the bench. You know he'll be fired up, motivated to have his team play well. Is it likely that the Islanders beat, say, the Rangers if the Rangers ended up winning the East, likely winning the President's Trophy? No. But at the same point, the Rangers have been a playoff failure. The Rangers have had huge gaffes in the playoffs before, losing in the first round last year, having home ice, being the favorite. They have been cruising for a long time. They did get energized last night in a line brawl to start the game with the New Jersey Devils, which was awesome. Curtis McDermott, Matt Rempe, loved it. But tracking all of this, Islanders are in Columbus tonight. That's absolutely a must-win game. When you have somebody on your schedule who's as bad as Columbus, you have to find a way to win that game. Penguins in Washington. Both teams technically dressing their backup goaltender, with Pittsburgh going with Nedeljkovic, Washington going with Charlie Lindgren, although he's been their better goaltender since the All-Star break. Those are the games in the East that hold true meaning tonight when it comes to making the playoffs. Tomorrow you have Red Wings hosting the New York Rangers. Tough game for them. Washington on a back-to-back heading to Raleigh, North Carolina. Philadelphia heading to Buffalo, and Buffalo won't be an easy out. They haven't been. So some tricky games. The season's over 2 weeks from today. Most teams have 6 games left on their schedule to figure this thing out. If we're doing predictions on the show today, Red Wings have the Rangers tomorrow, Sabres on Sunday, both at home, Capitals at home, huge game, at Pittsburgh, at Toronto, and they get Montreal twice to end the season on a home and home. So right now you get 4 non-playoff teams. You get at Toronto on a Saturday night. Where does Toronto dress everybody? Are they still playing for something a week from this coming Saturday? We'll see. It's not horrible, but Detroit's been an up and down team all year, and no game's a gimme for them. Washington, home to Pittsburgh, at Carolina, Senators, at Detroit, at Buffalo, Tampa, Boston, and Philly. So they get 4 playoff teams currently on their schedule. I do not think Washington's going to make the playoffs. With that schedule, I don't know how many games they win. I do not think they'll beat Pittsburgh tonight, so that'll be another loss. I've said this before. If Washington makes the playoffs, that's the worst team in NHL history to ever make the play. That team is garbage. They're awful. Let's move to Philly. They played a lot of games, 76. Haven't played since Monday night in an overtime loss to the Islanders. At Buffalo tomorrow, at Columbus, back-to-back, at Montreal, at the Rangers, home to the Devils, and then home to the Capitals. It's been a crazy season for Philly. You healthy scratch your captain twice, who's now injured, and he's out for the next 2 games. Your goaltender is facing a trial where he could possibly go to jail and his career could be over. Torts is being Torts, a great start, an incredible run. They are an underdog team. He's coached this team like they should be in the back of the pack of the league, which they should be, by the way. because there's so many more talented teams than Philadelphia. But by coaching, incredible performances from guys like Travis Konechny, Sanheim's had a phenomenal season for Philly, Atkinson bouncing back after health scares with his neck injuries and concussions, they are where they are. And despite the fact that they played 76 games and they've had their ups and downs and people hate Torts, I love him, but people hate Torts, I think Philly is going to get in. I think they will be one of the teams that gets into the playoffs. Because I think they'll win both their games this weekend. I do think they'll beat Montreal. That Rangers game is tough, but again, what are the Rangers playing for? Devils are a disaster, and Washington is an opponent that they can beat. So I have Philly getting one of the spots. Pittsburgh. At the Capitals this evening, a game I think they'll win. Hosting Tampa on ABC Saturday afternoon. At Toronto on Monday. Home to the Wings next Thursday. Host the Bruins, host the Predators, and at the Islanders the Wednesday, the 17th, the night before the season finale. To me, that game will be the deciding factor because I have Philly getting in. Philly likely will win the third spot in the Metropolitan. It'll either be the Islanders or the Penguins that will get the other wild card spot. You look Islanders at Blue Jackets tonight, Predators, just like Pittsburgh, Rangers, Montreal, Rangers again, at Devils, host the Penguins. Preds have lost 3 in a row. The kind of pixie dust has wore off that team, but they're still good. No doubt about it. Rangers twice. Rangers are red hot. They want that President's Trophy. I think Artemi Panarin wants to get to 50 goals. Matt Rempe's taken over the league. Montreal's been tough. I mean, they beat Florida the other night. Credit to them there. Devils, they're done. And then you got Pittsburgh. As crazy as this sounds, I just think the schedule for Pittsburgh's too difficult. Lightning playoffs, Maple Leafs playoffs, Bruins playoff, Predators playoff, Islanders potentially a playoff team if everything goes right. I think the Islanders are going to get in. Will be the last playoff team in the East for the second straight year, just like they were last season. The coaching change will prevail, if you will, because they'll make the playoffs based off of that. I think Pittsburgh's going to get close. That last game of the season very well could define it. But I like the Islanders' schedule a little bit. I like their goaltending a little bit more. They're a tad more consistent. So give me Philly, who I think will hang on and will have to make a decision on John Tortorella. But I think the decision's made. Here's why. He did his press conference yesterday. It was about 90 seconds. Go look it up on Twitter. It's worth the listen. He says, I have to figure out which of these guys can play. We're in that mode right now. Now, there's a double meaning there. He's figuring out who can play in the playoffs, but that's not the bigger meaning. The figuring out is who can play NHL minutes on a team for me or for the next head coach. The end of last season, John Tortorella was in the press box with Danny Briere and Keith Jones, not on the bench, scouting the team, looking at players. I view it the same right now. I think John Tortorella might step down like Steve Clifford did in the NBA yesterday. Torts is not a spring chicken. He's been doing this a long time. He's a Stanley Cup champion. He's won multiple Jack Adams awards as Coach of the Year. You could make the argument he's one of the greatest American-born coaches in league history. The only disaster on his resume is the Vancouver experience. Other than that, he's turned around mediocre to bad franchises. What if he goes into the front office, gets a role there, he doesn't have to travel 82 games a year, gets to do the stuff he does with animals. I know he's got a big charity, which I'm all for because nobody loves animals more than me. He can join the front office, be a part of the decision-making process, and they bring in a new, younger head coach who will gel with the team better than Torts will. I don't think you bring in some baby who's going to do whatever the hell the players say. I don't think that's the way you pivot. But what I do think is you make a slight change, you bring in somebody new, and you maneuver. It's the best of both worlds. He gets a good landing spot. The team gets a new coach, a new mindset. He leads them to the playoffs this year, which nobody expected. And then you move on. And you might make a decision on Couturier that he's not meant to be there. He's not a captain material. Which, if you're basing captaincy off players, production, then he isn't. That's quite simple. If it's off his leadership in the room, which we don't see, the intangibles, then yeah, you can keep him as your captain. But his play hasn't been good. I pointed this out before. Whenever, he benched his captain. He did this. What's he supposed to do, play him 8 minutes? That's just as embarrassing. There's no winning when somebody who's wearing something on their sweater. It's the same argument I've made about the Maple Leafs, where I think this summer, inevitably, when they lose in the playoffs, they should buy out John Tavares. I don't care he's the captain. I don't care he wore fucking pajamas. I don't care if he planned the parade route. You didn't bring one. You're hurting our team. Will that go over well in Toronto? I don't know. But what has gone over well? They haven't won anything in forever. Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results, is insanity. Torts does stuff his own way. He's won. Sean Couturier hasn't won jack shit in the NHL. And I like Couturier. He's from Bathurst. His father's a GM. The Bathurst Teton just swept the Halifax Mooseheads last night in the QMJHL playoffs. They were underdog. Swept the Mooseheads. Who saw that coming? Nobody, but it happened. But that doesn't mean he's beyond reproach. You evaluate the player. It's not, he's the captain. You can't do anything. That's Bush League. I mean, if you think about it this way. You have 2 kids. I know in my family, my parents had 2 kids because you don't want to have one because the one will be a spoiled brat, which I happen to agree with. That's why I'm going to have none, so I can be selfish and just be the spoiled brat of my family. Well, no, my dog is, but that's beyond the story. If you have one kid, your firstborn, and he's put on a pedestal, and you love that kid, and he can do no wrong, but then the younger sibling is treated much more harshly. He or she's put to the side. They don't get any benefits from it, and it's not even a fair playing ground. The firstborn could be an awful kid, could be out doing drugs, doing whatever, vandalizing people, hurting people, doing whatever the hell they have to do. That's incorrect. That's bad behavior. If you don't do anything to police it, then what's the point? You want to build them up. You want them to be better. That's like saying every other player in the Philadelphia Flyers can be criticized, can be healthy scratch, can be benched, but you can't bench Couturier because he's got a C, even though he's not the best player on the team. I think my example works. And yes, I am a Torts fan. I find him incredibly entertaining. He provides content, but he's also won. And does he make it about him a lot? Absolutely. Too much, no doubt. But at the same time, he produces results. He's successful. Let's give Sheldon Keefe a break. Let's give these other coaches a break. Oh, no, we can't criticize these people. They didn't do what Torts has done. That's one. Peter Laviolette, he doesn't get criticism. He's won 1 Stanley Cup. It was almost as long ago as when Torts won one. It was back in 2006. Been coaching a long time. Hasn't won since. What's the difference? Okay, Laviolette got the fucking Rangers roster. Tort's got Philly. I love Konechny. 30-goal scorer. Pro. Just a rat on the ice. People hate to play against him. I'm all for him. He could be on my team any day of the week and twice on fucking Sunday. But there's a huge difference. You got a team full of talent, elite players. A lot of nights, you're going to win because of that. In particular, in a regular season where the game isn't that physical and you can just wheel out there and do whatever the hell you want. You got a team that doesn't have as much talent as 80% of the league. You have to win within the margins. You have to win by Xing and O'ing the opponent, limiting their scoring chances, being better than the opposing coach because he might be a little more lazy because he has Panarin and Lafreniere and the other skill guys around him. I'm using one example, but there's a difference here. You have to coach that team different than you would the Rangers or the Maple Leafs or the Lightning or the Oilers. Because you don't have a McDavid, you don't have a Matthews, you don't have a Panarin. You hardly have an 80-point player on your team. You don't have a goaltender. You have to bring over some Russian who was playing there all year long, 27-year-old rookie in the NHL, to come play. So I'm supporting my guy Torts. Because I like him. I think he's smart. I think he's one of the best coaches in the league. Period. And I think Philly will get in. Chasing history. But I do think it'll be Torts' last season coaching in the NHL, by the way. There's an early prediction. Matthews up to 63 goals. Hell of a season. Every time it touches his stick, it seems to go in. The Maple Leafs have, I think they have 7 games maybe. The Maple Leafs have 7 games left. He will certainly pass Alex Ovechkin. Ovechkin's career high was 65. He will shatter that. Could be as early as Saturday. They're at Centre Bell to play Montreal, and that would be a great place to do it. McDavid gets shut out last night. The whole team. The Dallas Stars. Dallas Stars are a quiet group. Got another coach who's pretty damn good there. Balanced scoring. J-Rob, the better of the Robertson brothers, if you didn't know. Little Joe Pavelski. Jamie Benn, Sagan, Logan Stankoven, Miro Heiskanen. Jake Ottinger, who's starting to play really well. That team is dangerous. That team is competing with the New York Rangers for the President's Trophy. I find it highly unlikely that the Avalanche will pass them at this point for first in the Central. They're 5 back. Dallas they've won 8 in a row, getting hot at the right time. I don't want to play them. They were in the conference final last year. They have that experience. A bunch of older players that want to win. Pavelski's never won a Stanley Cup. Jamie Benn never won a Stanley Cup. Sagan won one a long time ago. It was a bit piece for the Bruins and wasn't in some of those games. So they're scary, and they're chasing a President's Trophy. Kucherov, saw this stat this morning. Thought it was fascinating, so I kept it to talk about tonight. Kucherov currently has 45 more points than 45 more points than Braden Point, who's second on the team in scoring. That's the third highest margin of points between players, or between teammates, to make this simpler, in NHL history. He's been that good. He leads the NHL in scoring with 130 points. He's up to 88 assists. They only have a few games left, but do I rule him out getting there? No, because I think he's that good. And he played pretty well last night, him and Braden Point against the Maple Leafs, and a big victory for them. You have McDavid chasing that. Hyman, 52. Could he get to 60 by the end of the year? That would be something else. Reinhardt's also at 52 goals. You have McKinnon, who's looking for a 50-goal season. Pasternak's at 46. Thus far, we have 6 players with over 100 points. Kucherov, McKinnon, McDavid, Panarin, Pasternak, Rantanen at 100 even. Then you have Leon Draisaitl, Austin Matthews with 99. JT Miller, the Canucks, 96. Bill Nylander, the Maple Leafs, 95. Wouldn't it be something if Bill Nylander gets 100 points this year, which I think he will, 5 points in 7 games, he would get to 100 points first before Mitch Marner. Mitch Marner's never gotten to 100 points in his career. He got to 99, did not get to 100. And that's just, I know that might not be a big deal, but I find it interesting because Nylander's had a hell of a season. A little more quiet down the stretch, but he's been good. So looking at it, I think we'll get 10 players with 100 points. All those guys I just mentioned, I think we'll get there. That's a lot of guys get 100 points in a season. You have Sam Reinhart, who's got 87. He won't get to 100, but that's a hell of a season for him, pending unrestricted free agent. That doesn't hurt. Quinn Hughes, 86. 86 points for a defenseman. Aho with 85. Philip Forsberg, Sidney Crosby, both with 84. Cale Makar, 81. Matthew Tkachuk, 80. Marner with 76. So, as I said, I want the playoffs to start. Sure, there's a race in the Atlantic, but Florida's been horrible. Their penalty kill sucks. They can't get a save. They're making horrible decisions in their own zone. They're not playing with that fervor that they normally do. They're in Ottawa tonight, which always seems to be a feisty game. When the Tkachuk brothers meet up, there always seems to be fights. The last time they met, I believe there's over 100 penalty minutes combined between the two teams. They're 4 points back of the Boston Bruins. They both have played 76 games. Boston's in Carolina tonight. Carolina still chasing the Rangers. They trail them by 5 points. They do have a game in hand. So they still have something to play for. Out west, as I mentioned, Dallas 5 up on Colorado. Colorado with a game in hand. Winnipeg's at 96. They trail Colorado by 4 points. They can clinch a playoff spot tonight with a win against the Calgary Flames. Vegas, 92 points. Edmonton with 95. All of a sudden, now Vegas back in the mix after getting a little hot lately. As I mentioned, Edmonton loses Monday to St. Louis. They lose 5-0 in Dallas last night. They are hosting Colorado Friday night in Calgary on Saturday before they play Vegas on Wednesday. So that could mean something. See in the comments, Panthers take out the Toronto Bums in 4. I don't know if it'll be 4, but I do agree with the point that Florida will beat Toronto. I've been saying that forever. And the Toronto Maple Leafs should want Boston. That's the team they should want to play. I get it. They beat Florida the other night. Florida hasn't been playing great. Aaron Ekblad's out until the playoffs. Not ideal for the Panthers, but if we recall, last year Florida went into the playoffs barely getting in. They needed desperation to get it. They needed Chicago to beat Pittsburgh just to get in the playoffs, which they got. No momentum, luck getting into the playoffs. And when they got in there, they were down 3-1 to the Bruins. They found their game and they won. So sometimes it's just getting hot at the right time. So while I have my issues with the team, Bobrovsky needs to be a hell of a lot better for this team to have any chance of getting back to a Stanley Cup final, let alone winning a round. Do I favor the Panthers playing the Maple Leafs in the first round? Yeah, I do, by a sizable margin. Because they're a better team. Period. Apologies, everybody. Lost my internet for a second, but we're back. Blues Predators. That game does mean something. Unlikely the Blues get in, but they've been battling. They trail the LA Kings by 5 points, Predators by 6. So they need to win that game tonight in regulation to have a chance. Nashville's lost 3 in a row. LA still wants to catch Vegas. And I think the Edmonton Oilers want LA to catch Vegas as well because I want nothing to do with Vegas in that first round. Nothing. If I'm Vancouver, Vegas, keep winning. Get that second or third spot. If you're Vancouver, okay, Dallas might have top spot in the West. That's okay. We'll play Nashville or we'll play Los Angeles. We will take our chances with one of those two teams. Because I just don't want Vegas. Hurdle's coming back. Mark Stone probably back for the playoffs. That's just a dangerous team. Kings are in San Jose playing the Sharks tonight. Flames, Jets, as I mentioned. Jets have an opportunity to clinch a playoff spot with a victory this evening at home. So, fun night in the NHL. Should be some good games. We'll talk about them on Sunday, as I always do on our Sunday podcast. Let's pivot to baseball. Not going to lead with the Blue Jays. I'm leading with really the story of the day in baseball, and that's that the Oakland Athletics, after this season, will be no more. The city of Oakland is losing teams. Started with the Warriors, where the Warriors moved from Oracle Arena, now playing at the Chase Center in downtown San Francisco. And that was a huge loss. You lose that money, you lose that stadium. The Warriors leave the Oakland area. Then Mark Davis says, I don't want the Raiders to be playing at this dump of a stadium anymore. I see an opportunity to create a Vegas market. I'm moving the team to Las Vegas. Has been a smashing success. The Super Bowl was in Vegas this past year. It's a major sports hub now. Win. Then you had John Fisher, the owner of the Oakland Athletics. They got something in a 4-game series, 3,700 fans over the weekend. Lowest attendance in baseball, lowest season ticket holders, horrible team. They're not spending money. This was their last year for a lease with Oakland, and it's officially over because beginning next season, the Oakland Athletics will be playing baseball in Sacramento. The Sacramento Kings get a partner. They get the Oakland Athletics for now. And I say for now because the plan is for Oakland to move to Vegas just like the Raiders did. John Fisher wants to build a stadium in Las Vegas. But if you recall, right around the Super Bowl, they were having meetings. It was shut down because they hated the pitch. It was on land that they want to use for other things. Stadium's too out of the way, cost too much money. People going to care. It's too off the strip. And it was denied. So Oakland has been in a holding pattern. We need to find a place to play because we can't play in Oakland anymore because we've already told everybody we don't want to be here. And we want to move to Vegas, but we haven't had the deal done yet. And I've said this before. If I'm Major League Baseball, I want Vegas, the franchise to be in Vegas, to be a expansion franchise just like the NHL. Bring a new franchise to Vegas. I wouldn't want to bring the Oakland Athletics, a team that's already been put together, a team with a stingy, cheap owner that puts together shitty teams, shitty attendance, everything that goes with it. I don't want it. But Oakland's going to Sacramento for now. They could be playing in Sacramento as long as 2029, according to Jeff Passan, because they haven't got this deal worked out yet. But they have options now to stay in Sacramento for at least 5 years. So they do have a home. And I feel bad for Oakland because I do think it's a good sports city. Those great Raiders teams, obviously with the Warriors' success, the Athletics, Moneyball, the things that happen in that city. But it's over. And now you have to pivot. And it's less about the team's success. Really, that has nothing to do with it moving forward. It's just how does this go? I mean, the Oakland Athletics are 1-6 on the season. They're not going to be good. They're horrible. They're one of the worst teams in baseball. And again, if it doesn't work out in Vegas, where do you go? According to multiple baseball insiders, they want to expand baseball. 32 teams in football, 32 teams in the NHL. They want 32 teams in baseball. I believe they want to go to Vegas and they want to go to Nashville. That's where they want to put 2 franchises. Makes all the sense in the world. 2 huge markets, 2 places where people want to go to. You visit, you get the tourists coming in to watch games. Cardinals fans fly in to watch their Cardinals play and say May because the weather's still not great yet in St. Louis. Minnesota Twins, whoever it might be, Blue Jays. And Nashville is any time of the year, people are excited to be there. I think there's opportunity, but I do think this franchise has become a bit embarrassing. They don't have a home. They are the Arizona Coyotes of Major League Baseball, really, because they don't have a home. They're balancing between places. You're trying to find a place to play. You have a low payroll. Your team sucks. The team's not going to be good until you move in to your new stadium in all likelihood, because why would you spend? You're going to be spending money on building the damn stadium for the team to play in, building facilities, building spring training, wherever you need all that stuff. That's going to be the outlook. It's not going to be about putting together a team that can compete, building up a payroll where you can put a competitive team on the field. They clearly don't care. They have no shame because the team's been awful for multiple years. But ultimately, this is a good thing for baseball because that Oakland stadium is horrible. They needed a new stadium. They didn't want to stay in Oakland. That was very clear. I think it got very tense at the end, and this is a better thing. And I've heard, David Sampson mention this on his podcast, Nothing Personal, that he could see Oakland getting another franchise down the road because it worked before. Maybe if you have a new owner, new stadium, new outlook, you bring baseball back to Oakland. unlikely right now. I'm sure it's tough for those true Oakland Athletics fans to digest. But I suppose they will be the Sacramento Athletics beginning next season as we start this new wave of baseball. Well, that's something new, Sacramento Athletics. Something that's not new and has really remained the same, and that would be the Toronto Blue Jays. The Toronto Blue Jays just finished a series with Houston where they won one game, somehow. But it felt like they got swept. And they are 3-4 on the season, and it doesn't feel positive. They had one hit in 2 games of their series against Houston. And in those 2 games, they were outscored 18-0. They almost were no-hit twice. Nobody's producing offense. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. hits a home run in the first game. Since then, he's been dead quiet. Nowhere to be seen. Trying to find him. Bo Bichette, neck spasms, missed games. He's off to a slow start, making some errors at shortstop. But really, you looked at the playoff game last year and you go, okay, bad decision on the bases by Vladdy Jr. Absolutely. An embarrassing mistake getting tagged out at second. But the major point of that series with Minnesota and losing it was the fact that they didn't hit. Runners in scoring position, they couldn't do it. Need a guy on, can't move him. Oh, we need to advance a runner, can't do that. Strikeout, swing at a bad pitch, pop up. It didn't matter. They just weren't producing offense. And they didn't in the series this week either. Blanco, in his 8th career Major League start, hardly a Major League pitcher. Mostly all the bullpen. He throws a no-hitter. First time throwing over 6 innings of work. First time over 100 pitches in his Major League Baseball career. He goes with a no-hitter. And then last night, series finale, Christian Javier only goes 5 innings, but he gives up a hit. The bullpen, Martinez, Montero, Scott, Coleman, don't give up a hit. Perfect night for the bullpen. And not to mention, the Blue Jays also decide, Yordan Alvarez. Yeah, he's pretty good last time I checked. Yeah, he's red hot. Let's keep pitching to him. Yeah, 3 RBIs, 2 homers, a double last night. Yeah, let's keep hitting him. Yanier Diaz hitting over 400 on the season. Yeah, okay, no, pitch to him. Pena, a couple hits last night. McCormick. It was a bad night for the batters. It was also a bad night for John Schneider. Just decisions, putting Chris Bassett out for that 5th inning after he just escaped a miracle 4th with only giving up 1 run. It was a calamity of errors. The team does not look good. They're swinging at bad pitches. They have the same habits they had a season ago. And yes, it's 7 games. It's a long season. But it would be better to lose and you look like you have a new approach. You know what? We lost, but we had 8 singles tonight. But hey, we lost. But guess what? This is going to translate. This will be better for us down the road, which I happen to agree with. But no, it's strikeout. We can't get anybody on. Selfish decisions. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is batting 208 on the season. 208, which isn't good, by the way. I don't know if you know that, but 1 homer, 1 RBI on the season. He's batting 2nd in the lineup. That's something else. Springer batting 120. Lucky's got a pair of solo homers. Bo Bichette is batting 150. Wow. Justin Turner, 318. The only hope they have. The Ginger Ninja playing well. Dalton Varsho. Oh, Dalton Varsho has been batting cleanup, which has been funny over the start of the season. He's batting 143. Alejandro Kirk, 0.95, which is hard to do. Kiermaier, 0.56. Kinner Fialfa, 250. Good on him. veteran. Kevin Biggio, 176. That's pathetic. It's hard to be that bad at not making contact. Get a fucking single. I do not understand the thought process of some teams in baseball where it's all about the home run. No, it's not all about the home run. It's about trying to win the game. And it doesn't happen enough for some teams, including the Blue Jays. They are not a fun team to watch night in, night out because they do the same thing every night and they expect to win, and they don't win that often. For example, I'm watching last night and I say, okay, Orioles, they got rained out, but late start. I'm going to watch this game. In Kansas City, who's a pretty decent team, by the way, they might be a problem this year. They got a lead late. So, okay, let's watch this game. Well, you get to the ninth inning, they need run to tie, 2 to win, right? What are they going to do? Well, first Cedric Mullins takes a walk. Wow. Then you get Colton Cowser, pinch hit. He gets a single, gets on base, bants the runner. James McCann doubles, and they win the game on a walk-off. Shout out to the kid. That is what you call doing what it takes. Getting on base, creating opportunities for your teammates, not trying to do it all yourself, which is what the Blue Jays' approach to the game is. Can you hit a home run? I can't hit a home run. Well, you got to hit a home run here. It doesn't have to be that way. They have a team that shouldn't be their approach, but unfortunately, it is. Detroit Tigers are 5-0. They're not a great team. So far this year, they played the White Sox and the Mets. And they've won every one of those games. But still, they're winning. And you can look at their approach and go, they have a lot of guys just getting contact, getting on base, finding ways to produce offense on a bad team. But they're winning. Marlins aren't winning. Why? Because all they're doing is swinging for the home run, maybe. You need guys to get on base, create opportunities. Marlins are leading in the game right now where they are 0-7 on the season. They need a win this afternoon in St. Louis. The Blue Jays will be a team that has a lot of promise, that has a lot of brand names, but doesn't win a whole lot of games, doesn't win anything in the playoffs if they do not change their approach. If they come with the same idea of how they're going to win baseball games, they are not going to win that many. They play a boring style. They are a selfish team. They don't play like a team. They play like a bunch of individuals. This isn't fucking the Olympics. You're not running track and field. You need your teammates to succeed, period. Yordan Alvarez had a bunch of RBIs last night. You know why? Yeah, he hit it over the fence, but the guy before him got on base. And then he smashed the bitch to the moon. But it's only one run if nobody else gets on. But it's only 7 games. But would I be semi-worried if I'm Blue Jays? Yeah, because you might win some games. You might still make the playoffs, but are you going anywhere from there? No. You'll just like the team down the road that plays in, at the Scotiabank Center. That's not the Raptors. That other team that plays there. Mention the Marlins, the Yankees, who the Blue Jays are heading to play tomorrow. Yankee Stadium. It's opening day for the Yankees tomorrow afternoon. Kikuchi against Stroman, the former Blue Jay. Yankees are 6-1. Take 2 out of 3 in Arizona, which is impressive. It's impressive stuff. Because Arizona's a good team. We're in the World Series last year. Aaron Judge was off to a slow start. 2 for 4 yesterday, 3 RBIs. Soto's batting .345 on the season. Gleyber Torres has been okay. You have Volpe, who's batting over 400. Oswaldo Cabrera, Hot start. They have some guys producing. Pitching's been very solid. But Yankees, Blue Jays, opening day for Yankee Stadium tomorrow afternoon in the Bronx. Although there's been a ton of rain in New York. The Mets have been washed out the last 2 days, having to play a doubleheader with the Tigers today. But baseball is back. You've already had a no-hitter this season. Bryce Harper had 3 homers on Tuesday night, which was phenomenal to see. You got some fun stories. Cleveland Guardians looking to become 6-2 on the season. Tigers, as I mentioned, are currently 5-0, looking to be 6-0. I don't think a whole lot of people had that in the bingo card. Pirates are looking to be 6-1 with a win in Washington today. It's early, but again, a lot of fan bases probably feeling good about themselves with their record. But then you have a team like the Astros, who are 2-5. Am I panicked about them yet? No. So I still think they're a good team, and they'll be competing for a wild card / divisional race the whole way. And they got the Texas Rangers this weekend. You got this weekend Blue Jays, Yankees, Dodgers, Cubs, fun series in Chicago. Diamondbacks, Braves, fun series. Astros in Texas. Red Sox, Angels. Red Sox are 5-2. Playing bad teams, but they're winning. So, kudos. Let's move to NCAA basketball. The men's and women's Final Four are this weekend. Final Four for the women are tomorrow night in Cleveland, Ohio. You have the men in Phoenix on Saturday. The women's final will be played Sunday afternoon. Men will wrap up on Monday. So a couple more days of great basketball. Looking at the women, it's interesting because the LSU-UConn game was the most watched female sporting event of all time. The rating was 12 million people on ESPN on Monday night. Angel Reese, Caitlin Clark, all that history. Phenomenal stuff. And you go off that and go, you have Caitlin Clark against Paige Beckers. Paige Beckers was a higher recruit than Caitlin. Gino Auriemma wanted Paige Beckers to come to UConn. She did. He did not really recruit Caitlin all that much because he had Paige. Caitlin's really taken over the sport. Paige Beckers had a horrible knee injury, which halted her progress and has really kept her at bay of Caitlin, and they haven't been compared all that much because of her injuries and what's transpired from it. Of the 2 games, the bigger game is UConn and Iowa, and it's not close because Caitlin Clark's a part of it and Paige Beckers is a part of it. Gino Auriemma, who is probably the most dominant head coach in women's basketball history, winning over 6 titles at UConn, domination, 4 straight seasons where he was number 1 in the country, and he never lost the ranking. They've been playing 7 women all tournament because they've had 6 players injured that have been unavailable. It's really been an incredible run from UConn to get to this point. One of 2 programs remaining to have both men's and women's programs in the Final Four alongside NC State. But my gripe, it's Friday and I'm going to stay up anyway because I don't sleep all that much and I watch a lot of sports. But for the average person, you have a long week. You get to Friday, you're tired. If you're at 8 o'clock, you're on the couch sipping a brandy and having a bag of chips, then you might go, you know what? The women's game's on. I'm going to turn this on. Or even for younger kids. If you have a young girl, say, we're going to watch this game together, which they should, by the way. I want to see the 2 best players play against each other. But that game only starts at 10:30 Atlantic. The first game of the night is NC State and South Carolina. And NC State's a great story. Nobody expected them to be here. They lost to a Miami team earlier in the year who Miami didn't even make the tournament. But it's a great story, and South Carolina has one loss in the last 2 seasons. They have been the best team in college basketball all year. Men or women, you could argue. But I still look around and go, you look at the game, NC State is a 11.5-point dog against South Carolina. So that could be a blowout. South Carolina gets to the national championship game. UConn is a 2.5-point dog against Iowa. Much closer, more storylines, more interest. Why is it not up first? That is my gripe. It's not like the teams needed more rest. They played on Monday. They're both good to go. They're young women. They're in great shape. They can play. For the networks, that's what I would have wanted. Maybe it'll do great. I think it will do great because people will want to stay up. But if you're trying to grab the biggest audience that you can have, I don't think it's putting that game at 10:30 Atlantic here. Even 9:30 in the States. Not ideal. That game's ending at 11:30, 12 o'clock. It's late. People get tired. People find other things that they want to watch. Whatever it might be. So that's just a gripe I have. I just think it's a wrong decision when it comes to marketing. When it comes to putting the product together, I wouldn't have done it. When it comes to picks, Carboso is a fantastic player for South Carolina. South Carolina is the best team. They faced some challenges along the way. As I mentioned, only one loss in 2 years, but you look at the tournament as a whole and you go, whoa, this is closer than I might have thought. South Carolina beats Indiana by 4 points. They beat Oregon State by 12, but that game was close down the stretch. So now they get NC State 11.5-point favorite. I think South Carolina is going to win the tournament. I don't think it's going to matter who they play out of UConn and Iowa. But I'm going to take NC State plus 11.5 if you're betting that game. I think they can cover that number. Team of Destiny, they believe in themselves. They're not going to give up down the stretch. They will play until the final whistle. Their coach has them believing. I like NC State to cover the number. NC State plus 11.5 in their game against South Carolina. UConn, Iowa. The feature matchup. Star players. 2 coaches that have known each other a long time. Iowa was in the national championship game last year. Lost to LSU, trying to get back. Team of Destiny field, Paige Beckers 41, 11, and 7 in the Elite Eight. I think Iowa's players around Caitlin are better this year than they were last year. It gives them a better chance to beat South Carolina, although I don't think they will. But I do believe that Iowa will get back to the national championship game. They will beat UConn. And I don't like UConn to cover the number. I think it'll be a great game. It'll stay close, but I think late in the game with free throws and everything like that, I think Iowa gets back to the national championship game. Another spectacular performances for Caitlin Clark and her teammates. Iowa back-to-back years in the big game. Looking at the men's tournament. First up in that game, I don't think it matters as much because there isn't the national championship game. If they get what they want, and that would be the bookmakers, the TV networks, they want Purdue and UConn to meet because you have the best player in college basketball in Zach Edey, and you have the best team in college basketball in UConn. NC State, Purdue up first. You get DJ Burns against Zach Edey. The two big men coming together, slapping meat in the paint, see what they can do. DJ Burns is so fun to watch. Great footwork, an excellent underrated passer for a man of that size. NC State has just competed. They've won 9 games in a row. Going back to the ACC tournament, they beat Duke twice during that span. They beat North Carolina. They'll have to take down another number 1 seed to get to the national championship game. DJ Burns is phenomenal, but I think he's going to have a hard time guarding Zach Edey because Zach Edey's just so big. So much taller than DJ Burns. DJ Burns is 6'7". Zach Edey's 7'4". He's a different kind of post player. He's going to need help. I like the guards for Purdue are more skilled. They're knocking down threes. They're playing with conviction. It's a great story to get to the Final Four. I think it's a great game. There's star power. But I think Purdue, who's a 9.5-point favorite, I don't worry about them losing the game, quite frankly. And as crazy as it sounds, I think UConn's a better team than Purdue. But I think Alabama has a better shot at beating UConn than NC State does of beating Purdue. I have Purdue covering the 9.5, and I have Purdue advancing to the national championship game. Alabama, UConn. In a great fight where you have just a technical guy who's great at everything. Great boxing, jiu-jitsu, wrestling. He is better than every aspect of the game than his opponent. Well, what Alabama has is they have a 3-point shooter's chance. In fighting, you have a puncher's chance. In this game, they have a 3-point shooter's chance of upsetting UConn. Because they have been a team that lives and dies by the 3-point shot. They shot 44% from 3 against Clemson. Made 16 3-pointers. Had 40 rebounds to their 28. 20 assists to their 15. They turn the ball over a ton, but it's because they're pushing the ball down the court. You look at their team. Pringle, 4 for 6. Nelson didn't make a 3, but he was good when he had to make shots. Griffin, the guard, 3 for 6 from 3. Estrada, 1 for 5. Sears, 7 for 14, who got hot from 3 in the second half. Stevenson, 5 for 8 from 3, all from the corner. These players need to make shots. Because UConn's offense is just pretty to watch. They do it. It's easy. They manufacture it. They get the ball to their big man, Klingon, who cannot be stopped. And I'd love to see him play Zach Edey because I think that's a phenomenal matchup between those two huge, huge men. Alabama should be happy to be here. UConn believe that they'd be here from the start of the season. When they win games, it's because they're crushing people. It's not a surprise. They thought they'd be. Dan Hurley gets on his players. But when they won the national championship game last year, it was on to the next thing. Let's bring in new recruits. Let's enter the transfer portal. Find new players. Let's go back to back. And they have an opportunity to do that. UConn is an 11.5-point favorite. What I think is going to happen is if you can take the number, if you can take Alabama plus the number in the first half, I would do it. Because UConn usually doesn't play a great first half. They let their opponent hang in there. They keep it within 4 to 6 points. And when the second half starts, they put their foot on the jugular and they take them out. They physically, systematically eliminate their opponent. I think Alabama keeps it close in the first half. I do not believe they have the ability to keep it close in the second. I like all 4 betting favorites to win this weekend. I like Purdue and UConn to be meeting up on Monday night in the national championship game, which we'll talk about on Sunday. I like South Carolina to be playing Iowa in the final on Sunday as well. And we'll talk about that betting line when we do the podcast Sunday morning, and we'll talk about that game before it happens. So that's all forthcoming. But I think it's a great weekend upcoming for college basketball. It's a great way to end the respective tournaments. You get star power at the end. You get intrigue. You get a school in the men's tournament that's trying to win back-to-back national championships. You get the Caitlin Clark. Can she finish her college career with a national championship? Something she could not accomplish last year. Can South Carolina go wire to wire undefeated, which would be something else? Can UConn and Paige Beckers upset Caitlin Clark and get back to the national championship game in what could be Gino Auriemma's final tournament? He hasn't said that on the record, but he's kind of hinted at it, that he said he's not going to be coaching for that much longer. So lots to be decided. Also news in women's college basketball, Haley Van Lith, who's a point guard for LSU, she transferred over from Louisiana Tech. She's entered the transfer portal today, so she's staying in college, and she's going to another school next year. She's leaving Kim Mulkey's program. So an opportunity for another team to get better. She struggled on Monday night in a big way. She couldn't guard Caitlin. Not entirely her fault because not many people could. She did not have a whole lot of help defense. But Haley Van Lith leaving LSU for another fresh start in women's college basketball. But this weekend will be fun. To the NFL. In a trade that I thought would have happened a long time ago, Stephon Diggs is finally departing the Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills traded Stephon Diggs to the Houston Texans for a 2025 second-round pick, which if it doesn't seem like much, it isn't. Stephon Diggs at his best as a number one receiver. Played 4 seasons in Buffalo. Had some success. There was rumors he'd be traded last year where he had problems in minicamp, but they resolved them. He showed up. But they lose once again in the divisional round to the Kansas City Chiefs. And they're left looking around, seeing Jordan Poyer leave, seeing Micah Hyde leave, trading Stephon Diggs, Gabe Davis going to Jacksonville in free agency, John Feliciano departing for the San Francisco Giants. So San Francisco 49ers, got baseball in the mind. They lost a lot of players, and now they get rid of Stephon Diggs. As a football decision, this does not make much sense because currently the Buffalo Bills do not have a number one wide receiver on their roster. And you could argue they don't have a number two. Now, they will be selecting a wide receiver in the draft. They have a pick in the 20s. But will they be able to get a Rome Odunze from Washington or a Brian Thomas Jr. or Malik Neighbors at that pick? No. They're going to be off the board. Or Marvin Harrison Jr. for that matter. It's one of two things. I think the Bills are going to be, I think Brandon Beane's going to be aggressive, looking to move up in the draft because he knows he needs a wide receiver. Expecting Josh Allen to beat Patrick Mahomes and work with subpar receivers to me is a stupid strategy because it's never worked. Josh Allen is not Patrick Mahomes. He's a very good quarterback. He's not as good. Nobody is. Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback to ever play the sport, period. Sorry, Tom Brady fans. He might have won more so far, but Mahomes can do things that just about any other quarterback can't. So, as I look at this, to me, this is a relationship that you couldn't maintain. A relationship that couldn't be fixed, so they decided to deal him to Houston. And the trade was yesterday. Today, Houston did something different. Diggs had 4 years left on his contract. They scrapped the final 3 years, and Diggs is now playing on a 1-year contract. So he's a UFA after this season, where he will be able to earn it this year, prove that he can still be a number one receiver in the league, and then hit free agency and try to get another huge deal. Which is an interesting way of going about it. Because he's a great talent. I like this because you don't get stuck with him if he's garbage. But now you look, Nico Collins, Stephon Diggs, Dalton Schultz, Joe Mixon, CJ Stroud. Houston is emerging as one of the best teams in the AFC. The Houston Texans today are a better football team than the Buffalo Bills. The Houston Texans are a better football team than the Cincinnati Bengals, quite frankly. They're a better team, name them. They're better. I still think Kansas City is the cream of the crop. You have to beat them to prove that you're in that league. Baltimore, still a very good team. Baltimore beat Houston in the playoffs last year. But they were aggressive, added people to that offensive line, added people to that defense. Danielle Hunter, top guy that comes over. You add Stephon Diggs with Nico Collins. Reported they might still be looking in the draft at another wide receiver to the mix. I like Houston a lot. I think CJ Stroud's a stud quarterback. There's not much he can't do. He's a leader. He's a winner. And for what you give up, which is not much, I like the risk. So, good on Houston, acquiring an asset, trying to be competitive, maintain themselves as a competitor in the AFC. Other NFL news, Kyle Van Noy, who they signed mid-season, was great. He gets a 2-year deal reportedly worth $9 million to remain in Baltimore. Good signing. Jordan Mailata, really the left tackle, huge part of the Eagles, gets a 3-year extension through the 2028 season. 3-year deal is worth $66 million and contains $48 million guarantees and a $20 million signing bonus. Really good at his position. They lose Jason Kelce, but they're trying to fortify that offensive line, maintain it, keep it where it was. And you get a guy like him, you're doing it. NFL draft's only a few weeks away. April 25th. 3 weeks from tonight, I believe, is the round one of the NFL draft. So be here before we know it. What happens? Do teams trade up? Vikings, Broncos. Who moves up to take J.J. McCarthy higher than they should? We'll find out very soon. The Masters begins a week from today. And in big news, Justin Thomas, who's had a rough last little while. Year and change has not been good for Justin Thomas. Did not make the tour playoffs last year. Was not one of the 70 best players on tour. Missed the cut at 2 majors. Made the Ryder Cup team basically off of his past accomplishments where the U.S. got smoked. And he was garbage. A couple weeks ago at the Players, he shot an 80. Hit a double bogey where he missed a 4-footer. He's been struggling. Well, yesterday he announced that him and his longtime caddy, Jim Bones McKay, Bones used to be on the bag with Tiger Woods, are parting ways after 8 seasons together. This is strange because it's 1 week before the Masters. Doesn't seem like the best time to change a caddy, to make this kind of a pivot. but he's doing it anyway. But it's weird in golf right now because you have the merger. You're talking about wanting to come together. All the players talking about we need the best players playing together. Then you have guys like Justin Thomas who are struggling, Rory McIlroy, who can't putt. I was watching today, he's missed 2 easy birdie putts from about 5 feet that just rim out. Doesn't have the confidence with his putter right now. And some of the best players, Max Homa struggled this season on tour so far. So it's been a weird season where Scottie Scheffler, the best player in the world, has been great. The rest, the winners on tour have been some of the guys you don't even know, you haven't even heard of. And you're like, okay, well. But Augusta, anybody can find it. Reportedly, Tiger Woods will be playing. Nothing concrete yet. So, I don't know. But it's a weird thing for Justin Thomas to do it right now. Do I think it's a smart decision? I do not. But Justin Thomas, 2-time major winner, never won a green jacket. We'll see how he plays next weekend at Augusta National. Other news around the sports world: Joel Embiid back for the Sixers. Big news for them as they're trying to chase a 6th seed. Unlikely, though, likely be in a play-in game. You got the Nuggets, Timberwolves, and the OKC Thunder vying for first place in the West. Nuggets playing the Clippers tonight. Timberwolves crushed the Raptors by 48 last night, which is the worst loss in franchise history for the Raptors. And I want to look at that loss a little bit more because I haven't watched the Raptors in a long time because they're not worth the watch, quite frankly. They have now largest loss in franchise history. And the Raptors have lost 15 straight, 2 back of the longest losing streak in franchise history. Coming up, they're at Milwaukee tomorrow. Oof. Versus the Wizards, possible win. At the Pacers, at Brooklyn, and then they play the Heat twice to wrap up the season. They're anemic, they're pathetic, and the NBA, does first in the West win you an MVP, is my question. Because Timberwolves and Nuggets both at 53 and 23. OKC 52 and 24. They've lost a couple in a row with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander not playing. Clippers are slated to play the Mavericks right now, which I don't think they want. Pelicans are the 6th seed. Sacramento, Phoenix 7 and 8. You have the Lakers, who are 11 games over 500 but are in the 9th spot. Thank God for the play-in. Warriors against the Rockets tonight. If the Warriors can win that game, the Rockets' playoff hopes are effectively over. So a massive game there. That's in Houston tonight. But I think the MVP right now, you got Jokic, who's a possibility. You have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who's a possibility. I think you got Anthony Edwards, who's still in the mix for me. And then you have possibly Luka Doncic, just because he's been having such a fantastic season. The Mavericks have been phenomenal in the second half of the year. You could argue Jason Tatum, but I'm not. Just because you're on the best team doesn't make you the MVP. But Celtics last night with the victory, they locked up to have the best record in the league. They'll have home court throughout the playoffs, including the NBA Finals. They are 60 and 16. It's incredible, the season that they've had. Just superb. The Boston Celtics. Better than I ever thought they could be. They get Sacramento tomorrow. I'm sure they're just counting down the days. Give us our opponent. And they're looking up going, season ended today, Celtics would get the Sixers. They've had a lot of success against the Sixers, to be fair, in the past. Really dominated them a number of times, but if a healthy Joel Embiid can come back, Tyrese Maxey, they got a puncher's chance. You'd certainly rather play the Bulls or the Hawks or the Pacers in that matter than have to play the 76ers. But you have the Heat in the 6th seed right now that would keep them out of the play-in game. But the Pacers they're tied with the Pacers with the same record, but they have to make up a game, which they will tonight, at home against Philadelphia. The Knicks, who I loved a lot, but they've gotten the injury bug. Julius Randle, recovering shoulder injury, reported today he tried to rehab it, but doctors have told him, not a good idea for you to come back. Not a good idea for you to play this year. So he is done for the season. He's shut down. OG Anunoby has not played in like a month and a half. So he's not playing. They've had Mitchell Robinson was hurt, came back, hurt again. So the Knicks are banged up. They're in the 5th spot. Magic passed them. They're trailing the Magic and the Cavaliers. I thought the Knicks could get to the Eastern Conference Finals if they were healthy. They're not going to be healthy. At this point, I don't know if they'll win a round. They could beat the Magic even without their best players, even though I love Banchero. I think the Magic are building something special down there. But it's an interesting series. I think you look at the Eastern Conference. Am I afraid of Cleveland? No. Do I think the Miami Heat would beat Cleveland in a series? Absolutely. Milwaukee doesn't fear me. I think the 3 scariest teams in the East are the Celtics, the Heat. It was the Knicks for me. It's not the Knicks anymore. Honestly, might be the Magic. But it's looking, day by day, it's going to be an easier path for the Celtics to get back to an NBA championship. Which is great for them, should be. They're 16-16. Out west, different stories. I think there's a lot of dangerous opponents, a lot of landmines that you have to get through just to get to the finals. This weekend, UFC, not a huge weekend. Really the warm-up, you get UFC 300 this weekend, WrestleMania's this weekend, UFC Brendan Allen, Chris Curtis 2. Chris Curtis taking this fight on short notice at the Apex. He defeated Brendan Allen their first time out, but since then, Brendan Allen's one of the best fighters in the middleweight division. Chris Curtis, you can get him at plus 162, but I like Brendan Allen to win that fight. Alexander Hernandez, Damon Jackson in the co-main. Damon Jackson, an underdog. I think he'll get that win. I like him, veteran. And Trevor Peek, Charlie Campbell. Peek's an underdog. Tough fight. I think this is going to be the fight of the night. And I like Trevor Peek to come up with the win, but that's a fun fight. Those two guys, both Dana White Contender Series fights. So, big weekend upcoming. I mentioned WrestleMania, the Final Four. Hockey, you got to decide things when it comes to seeding, things of that nature. Only basically 1 week left of the NBA before we get to the playoffs. So we're counting down the days until we get to the big stuff. Until then, enjoy the process. Enjoy the weekend. Great to be back with you all tonight. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening. Until next time, I'm Noah Warren. This to the point.